My name is Ann Savage, and I am the president of the City School District of Albany Board of Education. On behalf of the board, I welcome you to our web-based meeting. If you could please mute your microphones. I'm getting a little bit of a feedback. We are so pleased that each time we've met by web, more and more people have been joining us virtually. It is terrific to see people involved, and we hope that that will be the case this time. If you need to share instructions with a friend about how to log in, you send them to albanyschools.org/BOE. Our meetings are also always recorded, and the audio files are uploaded a few days after the meeting on our Board Docs platform, so people who can't be available in real time can still hear what we are talking about. Meeting by web is, of course, part of our effort to ensure that our meetings remain accessible to the public while also protecting the health of our community and doing our part to reduce transmission of COVID-19. Normally, by law, we meet in person, but as a result of Governor Cuomo's executive order, we now may legally meet by video conference, and we plan to do that until further notice. For any members of the public joining from home, we will show the relevant slides and documents in the virtual meeting screen, but you can also access them via albanyschools.org/BOE. We invite those of you who choose to join us as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In addition to saying the Pledge of Allegiance, we always focus our meeting by restating the mission of the City School District of Albany, which is to work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. Superintendent Adams, do you have a report for us?
Yes, I do. Thank you so very much, Madam President. We had the pleasure of celebrating several groups of faculty and staff members this week in alignment with the National Days of Recognition. I would like to take this opportunity to give them one more acknowledgement. This is Teacher Appreciation Week, a time to reflect on the critical role that teachers play in developing the next generation of society's leaders and thinkers. This is especially true in these challenging times, as we have had to reevaluate the way we deliver instruction and support our students and families. We owe our teachers a debt of gratitude for the difference they make each day in the lives of our students. Wednesday also was National Nurses Day, an opportunity for us to recognize dedicated nurses who make a difference every day through their compassion, quality care, and excellence in service. I also enjoyed the fun, heartfelt video from our nurses that they put together for our students and families. We also welcomed NYSUT President Andrew Pallotta on Wednesday to Arbor Hill Elementary School to salute our food service employees and other members of support staff who have been preparing and distributing meals to our families during this school closure. We are grateful to President Pallotta for taking the time to come and visit with our members to support our staff at Arbor Hill, to thank them for their dedication. We also celebrated National School Lunch Hero Day last Friday. Like so many of our employees, the members of our food service staff are truly heroes for the efforts that they have put into continuing to provide nutritious food for our students during this time. We have served more than 175,000 meals to date and are reaching more than 2,400 families each and every day. This is an amazing achievement. Many thanks to all of our employees district-wide for the efforts that everyone is making to serve our students and families. It is deeply appreciated, most especially by our students and the families themselves. A reminder that registration begins Monday for students selected for our 4-year-old pre-kindergarten lottery. Our central registration office is closed to in-person registration due to COVID-19. However, families may register online or by US mail. You may register by May 22nd to hold your child's seat for the next school year. If you are registering by mail, your materials must be postmarked no later than May 22nd. Also, a reminder that the elementary magnet registration remains open through next Friday, May 15th, for our families whose children are selected in that lottery. Please visit our registration section at albanyschools.org for more information. Finally, an update on our board meeting schedule for next week. We have 2 budget meetings scheduled, one on Tuesday, May 12th, and one on Thursday, May 14th. We will continue to review and refine the budget proposal that we will talk more about later in tonight's meeting. The public portion of both meetings is held at 6:30 p.m., and we will once again be meeting in this virtual environment. Thank you very much. That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you so much for your report. And I also want to echo your thanks and appreciation to our teachers and our nurses and our food service workers during this special time. As always, we know that all of the employees of this district are what make the district actually happen. And we appreciate you every single day, but particularly in this week when we appreciate teachers. This brings us now to the time of our meeting we call public comment. We always welcome input from our community about the decisions we are making. Usually we have a time set aside now for people to speak in person, but because we are still operating under COVID-19 status, we have accepted comments by email, by phone, and through our dedicated voicemail line. We did not receive any formal comments through any of those mechanisms for tonight's meeting, but we do welcome you to bring those comments to us for next Tuesday. You can find the contact information at albanyschools.org/BOE, or you can just email us at boe@albany.k12.ny.us. And that brings us now to routine consent. Many of you know who've been listening to board meetings frequently that this is the time we use to adopt routine matters for the district, like contracts. We do not individually vote on each one of those because it would take a long time, and instead each board member reviews them carefully, but we vote on them as a group with no discussion to save our meeting time. Nonetheless, any board member can set aside any item for further review and a unique and separate vote and conversation. So the way this works, I'm going to first ask for a motion to adopt a routine consent. Can I get a motion, Ms. Mann?
Aye.
Seconded by Ms. Smith. And are there any set-asides? Ms. Krejci.
I'd like to set aside number 14, property purchase referendum.
Any others? I'm personally going to set aside number 12, which is the Arbor Hill Elementary School disposal, and number 20, Don's moving and storage. Any others that need to be set aside? Okay. All in favor of adopting the routine consent agenda, less those 3 items, 12, 14, and 20. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can, oh yeah, 7. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Now we'll take each in order. Ellen, if it's okay with you, we'll just do them numerically. So we'll do number 12 first. So can I get a motion for the Arbor Hill Elementary School disposal? Dr. Chatoor, seconded by Ms. Smith. Is there any discussion? It was my set aside, so I'll start the discussion. Can somebody just let us know what happened to all these instruments? This is a lot of instruments, and I'm sorry to see this.
I will turn the time over to Ms. Bechtel, please.
Hello.
Hi, Karen.
Hi. I will check in with Kate on the status of these, but we do have instruments that go out of use. The music staff and Kate, in conjunction with our vendors, make every effort to repair instruments when we can, but sometimes they come to the end of their life. But I will double check on this if you would like more specific details about this list of instruments.
Yeah, I would just love a one sentence. I don't need a lot. It just seemed like an awful lot of instruments in one specific school, like maybe something had happened. But if it's just routine, then it's just routine.
It is certainly routine.
Okay. All in favor of accepting this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's unanimous. That's unanimous. Second, we need a motion in favor of number 14, the property resolution. Dr. Chatur, second by Ms. Wilson. Is there any discussion? Ms. Krejci, this was your.
Sure. I just wanted to say, as a member of the Wellness Committee and a former parent at DCS, I'm really excited about the prospect of purchasing this vacant land very, very near Delaware Community School, which has virtually no green space around it. And very excited that it was a member of the community and a parent who let us know that this was, in fact, a possibility. So this is going to be a great thing, and I'm glad that we're moving forward with this. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Krejci. I'll also add that I'm very grateful that the Albany Land Bank exists and has been such a good partner to the district, to us in working out the ways we could arrange this transaction. I think it's really to the better of the entire city for us to be able to improve this school in this way at a extremely, very modest cost. So while it's very sad that those buildings had to go, it is going to ultimately benefit the district and the city as a whole. All in favor of accepting number 14? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Now we need a motion to adopt number 20, the rescinding Don's moving of storage. Can I get a motion? Ms. Smith, seconded by Ms. Wilson. This is my item for discussion. I just wanted to make sure we were ready to do this. This has to do with moving the voting machines, the scanners, and I just wanted to make sure we were at a point where we were ready to know we wouldn't need them, none of them. I know that we will be doing an entirely different model. I wasn't sure if we'd gotten to a decision where we knew we weren't going to need those scanners.
Yes, and Ms. Roaring will address this.
Good evening. We have been advised that we will be unable to utilize the scanning machines that we would normally be able to use from the Albany County Board of Elections as part of our annual vote. We believe that this is associated with the timeline and how ours is just 2 weeks prior to the primary votes that will be taking place on June 23rd. Normally there's a much longer period of time in between, and it gives them time to put the machines out, bring them back, and also work with us on the scannable ballots, which we are also unable to get from them this year. So we do believe we are in the position, and it is the time to do this cancellation of the contract.
If I have other questions about the process, should I hold those till we go to the budget portion of the meeting? Okay. So
Yes.
all in favor of this rescinding this contract? That is unanimous. And that brings us to the end of routine consent. Mrs. Adams, did you have anything you wanted to share?
Yes, I would like to express thank you so very much for accepting the routine consent. We also have an appointment of our security director, Mr. Vincent Thompson, and we would like to welcome him. Thank you so very much. He proceeded through the interview process, and we are looking forward to him starting with us on Monday.
That is terrific news. I know that's a vacancy we've been looking to fill for quite a while, and it's an important role in the district, and will be even more important if or when we have students back in our buildings. But nonetheless, it's great to have somebody on board who can start with that position soon. So welcome, welcome, and we will look forward to meeting you soon. With that, I think we're ready to go on to the policy agenda. We have a little bit of a packed agenda on policy tonight. Dr. Chatur, chair of the policy committee.
So we actually talked about these last week, so it's more action item this week. We have 6 policies that we discussed last time. The first one was school board legal status, where we, some of these policies were minor revisions based on the NSBA samples, and some of them were minor in terms of, the gender language. So if people don't have any specific questions, can I discuss them all together? So we have more time to talk about budget.
Yes, that's fine with me. If you can highlight anything you think might be of particular interest to the community, are there any substantive changes that are needed?
None of them were substantive. I mean, in terms of 4200 curriculum management, the policy now is revised so it better reflects what we currently do. So the policy as it stands has changed. I mean, a lot of things have changed over the years, and this is a better. The revision is actually better reflecting the current practices, where we implement a curriculum review plan and a 5-year cycle of review with the superintendent presenting an annual report based on what was the results from the previous year. The other major thing that was changed was actually an amendment to 0110 sexual harassment. Because the laws changed, now we can no longer have both staff and student issues addressed in the same. So you really have to amend that policy, and you have 2 sub-policies that were created, 0110.1 and 0110.2, which is specific to either students or employees. And the language is specifically changed based on the subgroup that it's addressed. So nothing really substantial other than,
Okay, so board colleagues, I'm just going to ask if everyone is comfortable with us taking these as a group. And by comfortable with us taking this as a group, I mean, are you planning to vote in favor of all of them? If there are any that you plan to vote against, I'd rather do them individually rather than get involved in set-asides and whatnot. Is everybody good? I see a lot of nodding. Okay. All right. So then I remind members of the community that the way this works, we always discuss things one meeting and then come back and act on them the next meeting, unless they're part of the routine consent agenda. So we did have a full discussion of these. Every board member has carefully read all of these policy proposals and considered them. But we do sometimes move through them, it looks like quickly, because we discussed them the prior meeting and reviewed them in between. So with that, I'm going to entertain a motion to adopt the policies that are indicated, including the 2 new policies in the amendment as described on the agenda 0110 and 0110.1 and .2. Can I get a motion, Ms. Wilson, and a second by Mr. El-Miawi? All in favor? 1, 2, 3. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And that brings us now to the superintendent's report on the COVID-19 operational and academic updates. Superintendent Adams, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Good evening again. And so at this time, I would like to share with the board and with our public where we are in terms of COVID-19 and the updates that we have both operationally and academically. As always, we start with our vision on our mission statement, making sure that this is at the core of every decision that we make in looking at how do we continue with student achievement, the delivery of quality instruction, building our leadership capacity, engaging and empowering our families, and then of course partnering with our community. We know that our time frame now with regard to COVID-19 has been extended through the end of the academic year. And so that means that we have additional planning that we need to do. And you will see through this presentation, some of those things start to take shape as we look to move forward. The topics that I'm going to address this evening with regard to our operational impact is that we are at work, we're just working differently. And so I'm going to share out our continuity of instruction plan, the reopening committee that we've started, and then perspectives in online learning and how we're expanding that. So within our continuity of instruction plan, we look to develop this document in a very collaborative way. And so We are sharing this out publicly. We are going to share it out online. It will be available so that people can see the roadmap that we have taken thus far. There's nothing new in that document, but I did want to take a minute to talk about how we came to that document. There was not one large committee of 50 people sitting in a Google Meet that sat down and did this in one night. That could not happen. That just could not happen. But what we have done is, based on all of the information that we have been sharing out for the past 7 weeks, we have pulled it together into one document so that now it's all consolidated in one place. And so I do want to take the time to say thank you to our union presidents, Sonia Flowers, Michelle Bridgewater, Laura France. This work cannot be done without you. We have been step in step with each other in terms of, how do things need to work? How can we make this better? What are some ways that we need to roll things out? Cabinet has been instrumental in working through their divisions and levels of supervision in order to provide those details with what do we need in terms of family engagement. How are we communicating with our families, be it online, be it telephone calls, and who are those people that are responsible for checking in with our students if they're not engaging, and being that support for our teachers and administrators is needed. And so this document is a comprehensive document, and it does address the things that we've done with family engagement. It looks at education in a remote environment. What have we done to date to close that digital divide? What have we done to provide resources at all levels, from pre-K through 12th grade, special education, ENL students, our CTE students as well, our night school students? All of these things, we have been able to put it together into one document. Of course, looking at food and nutrition, how we've been able to provide food since day one for our students, and looking at our delivery program that we have now in place. The fact that we do have access to, in partnering with the Y, with regard to childcare resources for our emergency and healthcare personnel, and then of course maintenance and operations in looking at the cleaning of our buildings and the sanitization of our buildings, so that when we return, our buildings are in a position where we would be ready to receive our students and faculty and staff, regardless of what that may look like. And so again, this document is really just an effort to put everything in one place that we have collectively done over time. And I will reiterate, while there was no one committee that sat down at any one time, this is a culmination of several different groups of people working together, helping us provide those documents, right down to our daily update to staff and our daily update to parents. And so I just want to emphasize that. So it will be posted on our website so that you can see all of that information in one place. Our next piece is the reopening committee. We have started our work, which if you think about all the things that have to happen in reopening, it is a very large task, because we are looking at not only schedules of how students may be coming back to school, we're also looking at work schedules and what that may look like. We're also looking at how do we deliver quality instruction? What type of supports are we putting in place for mental health, for social emotional well-being? All of those things have to be considered. When we look at the logistics, we also have to tie that to absolutely the educational environment, and then what are those wraparound services that we're going to provide for our students. So initially, we have developed a very large committee where Cabinet owns a particular area based on their responsibilities, our responsibilities. We have divided the responsibilities according to the divisions by which we supervise. And then the next level is having a subcommittee that looks at the elementary level, the middle level, and the high school level. We know that there may be overlap, but we really need to look at the unique needs of the levels first, and then we can see where that overlap happens, and then what may be our steps moving forward. Now, this work will not be done in a vacuum either. We have representatives across the district on each of the subcommittees of elementary, middle, and high school. And Dr. Wilson Turner is leading the work with the elementary level. Lori McKenna is leading the work with the middle school level, and Karen Bechtel is leading the work with the high school level. And so we have representatives from each of our unions. It goes from classroom teachers to transportation to safety and security, maintenance and operations, business and finance. Our instructional supervisors are represented. So those 3 subcommittees have additional people on the committee for input and development, which then may branch out to other subcommittees. And so this work, we know, cannot happen overnight. And so we are giving ourselves several months to pull all of this together, because even in the midst of doing this work for the reopening committee, we still have the day-to-day responsibilities of delivering instruction and making sure that we are meeting the needs of our families. So there will be more information coming forward, and we will absolutely keep the board abreast of what is happening throughout the time frame. We are also looking at pulling together, when we get a little bit further down the line, a group of parents so that we can get their input, as well as getting student input across the board, so that we can see where some of those gaps may be from those true end users. So that's just an update on where we are with the reopening committee. Another piece that I would like to add to that is, regardless of where we are, we know that we have to continue instruction. And so regardless of that delivery model, whatever it may look like, we are keeping our students at the forefront of our decisions, making sure that we are designing something that we can ensure that delivery of quality instruction moving forward. And we will continue for the remainder of the year with our online platform. We are looking at what summer school may look like for all 3 levels. And that information also will be forthcoming because we have to look at what those plans will be and then talk that through so that we can make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students for summer school. The final point that I wanted to share with you today, the perspectives in online learning. I know that many of you have been enjoying seeing the different videos and the vignettes from our teachers and our students. And as I said, when we rolled it out, we would be looking to include our administrators, we would be looking to include parents as well, so that we can see that 360 view of what does it feel like in this new environment. And so what we have done, we are looking at expanding that perspectives in online learning and looking at some administrative reflections. And so I want to thank Lori McKenna for taking charge of this and moving it forward. And Mr. Baker, if you could click on the link so that we could see some of the examples. So there were questions that were asked of each of the educators about what have they learned through this process, how have they grown as an educator, and what are they most proud of? And looking at some of the things that they might even look at continuing even beyond this process. And so if you could just click on maybe 1 or 2, we can start. This is from PPS, and I'll give you an opportunity to look at that one. And if we could look at the next one. So this is from our special education department. And so we do have the link available so that you can look at others and just click through and see what the reflections are from our administrators. It's nice to be able to hear the perspectives of our students, to hear the perspective of our teachers, but we know that this is having an impact on all of us. And so we realize that, number one, we're not alone. We're all in this together. It is truly an all in for Albany, where everyone is going to be impacted by this. And so to read through some of the reflections, to hear the perspectives of our students and our teachers and our families, it helps us realize that more of us are sharing some of the common things, and that we're not alone as we move forward. So at this time, I will open this up for questions, please.
Board colleagues, this is a great time to ask any questions about anything happening now through the end of the year and moving forward. I know the superintendent has raised the possibilities about what might become what we have to do next year with reopening. Clearly, we don't have any detailed answers about those things yet, but certainly questions are always welcomed, I believe. Who has the first question? Vicki?
Yes, Superintendent and Cabinet and just everyone, thank you so much. I have to say I was very excited to look at the district's continuity of instruction or of learning plan. And yes, I listened to all the reports at all of our meetings, but it was, as you said, so nice to have a description of everything in one place. Also, I could link on to other things right there in that document to look at what an elementary day might look like and how much time was being spent in the classroom. Look at some of the caring and nurturing of our youngsters going through this experience. And so I just wanted to say I was just delighted, and I get up every morning and my first stop is going to look at the perspectives from teachers and students and families. I'm sure that many have said this, but this can be quite stressful and emotional. And I continue to try to look for all the bright sides and silver learning experiences, and getting up and listening to what our teachers and our students say. It's like, it's part of my day. It's like getting up, getting in that shower, getting breakfast, keeping it moving. And so kudos to everyone who's participated in that development of that learning plan, who are operationalizing and implementing it. I also wanted to just shout out, I mean, you have thanked everyone today, teachers and parents and families, and I did want to acknowledge, and I think all of us have seen articles about this social emotional toll that this experience is having on our youngsters and their families. And I mean, I don't think that should be a surprise. I think that's something that our staff and we as a district have known and have been working on from the get-go. But I did want to give a shout out to our youngsters for their stick-to-itiveness, their coping mechanisms, and the fact too that they are reaching out to their teachers and to other support staff. I think I'm just really, really pleased that we have these mechanisms in place. And I did have just one question. I apologize for the length of that comment, but I just really wanted to just to say how grateful, special, and thankful I am to be a part of this district, to have such great contributions from all of our staff, but our community partners as well. I know that you're working on a lot of detail, and I wondered if the reopening plan acknowledges or might include the possibility of remote learning continuing for those youngsters whose health might already be compromised, or their families are nervous about them coming back to school. And again, I know that there are lots of answers, and we're also going to be looking for guidance from state and from the governor, et cetera. But I wanted in particular to ask about that particular component.
So I'll start by saying that prior to COVID-19, we had pockets of teachers that were already engaging in blended learning. The difference is that there was the opportunity for students to be on site and to have that face-to-face interaction with a teacher, even though they were still experiencing some of the blended learning platform. As we move forward, we don't really know what that's going to look like yet. We do know that we may still be in a social distancing stage where we have to look at the numbers of students that are in a building at the same time. And so just by nature of that, there will have to be some type of blended learning, but the extent of that and what that actually looks like, that's what we have to work on.
Thank you.
Who has the next question? Dr. Chatoor.
I mean, it's great to see all the hard work that's being put to all the different departments. I mean, this is totally uncharted. No one's been here before, and it's amazing to see how people have stepped up to the plate, risen to the challenge, and done what they could with this situation that was handed to them. My question is more in terms of now that the school is going to be closed for the rest of the academic year, and we'll have summer schools, hopefully coming after that. What are our plans in terms of students being able to go back into the schools and retrieve their things from the lockers?
So we have been talking about what that looks like. We still have teachers that have to get their belongings. Students have to come and get their belongings. We have things that are in lockers, things that are in classrooms. And so that's part of even though it's a reopening plan, part of that is going to be, how are we closing out the school year? Obviously, we would have to look at staging some sort of pickup, where and how students' belongings might be packaged. What does that look like? So we also have to look at those kinds of things, and that's all part of the planning. But we do know right away there would have to be some type of staging so that it could either be grab and go, like you've seen many districts, they have packaged up student belongings, it's outside, parents drive through and they pick it up so that it's limited or no contact. And so we will be looking at some of those kinds of things. Of course, time is going to be something that we have to work with. We're not a small district. And so looking at what the time frame will be to be able to get back into the buildings, into the classrooms, to package up student belongings so that they can then come and pick them up, or what that schedule might even look like, is something that we have to work on.
Thank you.
Ms. Krejci.
I just had a question about what we might consider doing, or what the state might, if the state has indicated anything about the dates for summer school and then the return to school for the start of the 2021 school year. I know our summer school is usually in July rather than August, but I'm wondering if anyone's given thought to maybe moving it later to enhance the possibility that some of it could be in-person instruction, or are we committed right now just because of the necessity of planning to do virtual instruction in July?
So those are part of the plans that we are working on. And so I can't really answer that right now. We're looking at several different models, and based on what we need to deliver, that's the model that we will take. Those timelines for summer school, I stated a few meetings ago, one of the things that we are thinking about is, would summer school, especially for maybe our elementary students, be better suited closer to the beginning of the school year, so that it's more of a reboot of getting them ready for school. Of course, our secondary students, when we're talking about graduation, our high school students especially, that summer school might need to start a little bit earlier. And so these are the things that we're working on. And we know that, the clock is ticking. And so we are working feverishly to determine what is it that we need to do to deliver a quality summer school.
Thanks. That's actually a very helpful explanation. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who has not yet asked a question have a question? I have a brief comment. I just wanted to thank you, as Vicky did, for the continuity of instruction document. I also found it extremely helpful to have that all in one place. And I wanted to make a particular comment about the support for ENL students and how much I appreciated both Jill Peckinpah from USCRI and Dahlia Herring from the roundtable, the refugee roundtable, have both individually reached out to thank the district for the level of effort we've put into reaching out to our families who are not primarily English speaking, up to and including individual phone calls in individual languages, all the way throughout this process. And so I wanted to thank Jill and Dahlia for reaching out to us, because it really means a lot to get those thanks. This is a very difficult job that the district has been undertaking. And I think folks who are not in those communities don't really have a clear sense of what we've been doing. So it really means a lot to me when people who are very, very tied into those communities recognize and thank the district for that. And so that's a little takeoff from the instructional piece, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a comment or a question? I guess my other question, since nobody else has asked it, is where are we on fourth quarter grading policy? I know we have a board grading policy that needs to be ensure that we do not conflict with what makes logical sense at this time. So we'd like to get any changes to that underway, and we just need to know where you are on that and when we might see more on that.
We should see something next week. We have a committee that has been working on that, and just kind of partnering with what are some other examples of what other districts may be doing with regard to fourth quarter grading. And so we have a draft that we should be ready to present and share next week.
Okay. Dr. Chittor.
Thinking about fall, reopening in fall. I mean, I understand the online learning, but there are some things like the labs that it's kind of hard to do that online. So what kind of options are we considering in terms of a chemistry lab or a biology lab where students would be doing teamwork, actual dissections or experiments?
Some of those things, and I'll speak to dissections because those can be done on the computer. There are online activities for that. The chemical experiments, there are some that are online and it is done virtually, but we have to look at what that really looks like next year, because we do have labs and we want to make sure that it is a quality experience for students. And so when we talk about, if students have to have that opportunity to attend school 1-2 days a week, then maybe that is the lab day. That I don't know, but I know that those are things that we're going to be talking about as we look at what those schedules need to be.
Yeah, because if you're still practicing social distancing, that limits the number of people you can have in the lab at any one time. And
that's right.
things get complicated. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Ms. Smith.
Yes, Superintendent, I know, I think I've asked this at the last board meeting, and I see the information also in the continuity plan. It's really about attendance again and engagement. I wondered if we are seeing a slight uptick or any changes in attendance since the last board meeting, and what we are continuing to do to connect with our youngsters and their families to engage them.
So we monitor their engagement based on logins. That's what we have, based on logins. And so we are seeing an increase in that. I do believe that we provided an additional summary, and if not, we will definitely get that to you. But we are seeing an uptick. We are also continuing to follow up with our students. So when we notice that someone may not be logging in, there are those phone calls that are made from, it could be from the teaching assistant, it could be from the teacher, it could be from the hall monitor. If there are numbers of students, then we may take the list and divide it out among people from the school so that they are calling and doing that follow-up with families.
Other questions about what's going on right now? Oh, Vicky's got another one. Go ahead, Vicky. Oh, wait, Damaris, did you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
Why don't we do Damaris and Vicky? Damaris and his son, then Vicky, since they haven't asked.
So, and this may have been answered at the last board meeting. I just perhaps need a refresher. Were we able to distribute all of our hotspots, and have we been able to engage most of the students and families that initially had some difficulty getting online?
So I am going to put Mr. Baker on the spot because he just reported on this morning. And so I think it's very positive news. And so Mr. Baker, if you could please respond to where we are with our hotspots, please.
The initial distribution was based on two sets of devices, basically. The first being specifically donated to the EON population. There were just enough hotspots in that donation to meet the need that existed in that building. Those devices were provided to the building last week, and if not fully distributed at this point, are well underway to being distributed to families in need at Edmond O'Neill. As far as the larger grouping of hotspots that we acquired from T-Mobile, we acquired 600 total, 100 of which arrived last week. We engaged with the high school leadership team to identify the high priority students, typically those close to commencement, those working toward credit recovery in order to graduate, and so forth.
Mr. Baker, just 1 second. Mr. Amiabi, could you mute your microphone? We're getting some feedback. Thank you.
Upon consulting with the high school, a group of students was identified. Those devices were also assigned and provided to the high school staff actually today. So we fully expect that that first wave of high priority access points will arrive at high school family homes over the next few days. And we are awaiting the final larger shipment, the remaining 500 from T-Mobile at any point next week. We're already queued up to receive that. And at that point, we should be able to work pretty quickly to address the remainder of the need as far as students without access at this point.
And I just want to remind people who are listening from the public who might not have listened to our earlier meeting that the contract that we have with T-Mobile extends beyond the COVID closure. So we hope to be able to make those hotspots available for student learning even beyond this time of emergency crisis schooling, which I think is another one of those small silver linings that we can find from this difficult period. Let's see, that was Dr. Chittor. I think we had Damara, Ms. Mann, and then Mr. Elman.
So I actually, I was thinking about the idea of, or the login issue, and I'm kind of wondering, and I know this goes back to grading policy or how we're going to grade for fourth quarter, but are logins going to be calculated in terms of grades? Like, are we going to, I know attendance is very difficult to pin down right now, but are we doing anything in terms of tallying logins or check-ins or something like that for grading?
So let me explain it this way. We need to monitor the engagement of our students. And so the only way that we are able to even do that, to track it, is through their login. That's it. Other than that, we are unable to measure whether they are participating in class because we're using Google Classroom. And so their login is, I don't want to say it's their attendance. It measures whether they are engaged in the activities that the teachers are providing. And so when they are not engaged, what we do is we follow up to see what the disconnect is so that we can perhaps close that gap. And I think that's the best way to explain that. I don't want people to think that attendance doesn't matter, because it does, but it's not the same way as when students were physically coming to school. And so does attendance matter? Absolutely it does. It matters in terms of students being engaged in the work that their teachers are putting forward through Google Classroom. And so we monitor that engagement, and then we look to see what the disconnects are within the instructional program to make sure that our students are getting what they need to be successful.
Ms. Wilson, and then Ms. Smith.
And just along the same lines of confirming, the logins and things of that nature. There's also an element of it being about the child's well-being, because we don't know, for example, we don't know what the cookie cutter situation may be in every scenario. A parent could be home with the child, a parent could be going to work. So we kind of really don't understand or know why they're not logging in. So it's not a lack of attendance. It could be a digital divide and things of that nature. So I think it is, if there's not a login, then we sort of do the outreach and proceed from there and escalate.
Ms. Smith.
Yes, Superintendent, could I just ask another related question to engagement? So the last report we had, we saw that some of the attendance or engagement was low at elementary levels. And I think, that might be explained by the fact that parents really likely have to be involved in that access. But also we saw some areas where the middle school challenges were there. And then a group of youngsters that we have not been able to engage as of yet, but we're still working to communicate with them. Have we been able to do more and address or find out, more of why that engagement has been challenging at those levels or for a particular group of students?
For those that are hard to reach and we're not able to get consistent information, we don't know. We don't know, but we are still reaching out. We do have some that we have done the social distancing home visit to see what's going on in the family so that we can hopefully close that gap and see what that disconnect is. If for those that we've been able to find out and meet the need, then we've been able to do that. And so for those that are challenging and hard to reach, we are continuing those efforts to do the outreach.
And I just wanted to chime in with those numbers because I meant to forward them to you guys. They went into the communications tool, but on the elementary level, we had seen in what was in the SBU last week that it was less than 2% of the elementary school students were in the non-contact, meaning we have not had any connection with them. And at the elementary level, I think Lori said it was less than 5%. So that's still, a fair number of students that we haven't been able to reach, but it's not 25 or 30%. It's a fairly small number of them. So I know that the district continues to make extraordinary efforts up to and including door knocking to try and reach these folks. But I think it's a relatively small number overall.
And Ms. Savage, just one more. Sorry. Superintendent, and I think the answer is probably that we don't have this information of yet, but if I understood, did I understand the governor to say that he would be approving, his area would be approving education plans? Or do you have any information about what that means?
No, the continuity of learning goes into the State Department of Ed, and right. It is reviewed by the State Department of Ed. They give feedback with regard to information that they may see that's missing or that there may be additional pieces that they're looking for, but it goes in, it's submitted and it's reviewed.
I guess what I probably meant to say was on the reopening, though. I wondered how that was going to be looked at.
Oh, we don't have any guidance on that yet. Okay. We don't know.
So I apologize. That's really what I went.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else on the remainder of this year, next year, COVID situation, reopening? I'm sure more questions will occur to us as we hear from our constituents. Oh, Ms. Smith, are you sure?
Okay. Yeah, just really one little teeny one. And maybe Mr. Baker has this one or Superintendent. I wondered whether we know if Spectrum, I don't know how many of our families took advantage of Spectrum's offer for, I think it was 2 months of internet service. But I'm wondering if they are extending that. Do we have any information about that?
I don't have any information about whether they are extending it or how many of our families they would have gone through Spectrum, and we did not get that information or that feedback.
It'll be an interesting thing to see as we proceed. I know that for families that I'm in touch with, they at the beginning may have felt that they had enough technology until they actually started to try and live with the technology and realized, oh, wait, I thought I had enough. But in fact, with me working from home and 2 kids doing distance learning, even though it's not all synchronous distance learning, it's still an awful lot of screen time, and people are finding that their technology isn't stretching as well as they thought. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that if we go to a real blended environment next year. Ms. Krejci.
Yes, I had a question about how do we determine in this environment which students would best benefit from summer school, given that the summer school may be virtual and the people that may need the help are the people who can't or have access barriers? And then the other question is, have we thought about maybe having to retain kids for another year who aren't participating or aren't up to levels? And how do we find these kids before the beginning? How do we find and assess kids to know who needs summer school or who can't move on to the next grade?
So the answer to both of those questions is really the same. Those are the things that we are considering as we look to see how summer school needs to be designed. It'll be designed based on the needs of our students.
Okay. Remember, folks, we're meeting on Tuesday. So if you have other questions that come to your mind between now and Tuesday, there will be more time for this conversation. But meanwhile, I want to allow us, unless people have something burning, to move on to the Albany High 2018-19 graduation rate. Oh, actually, I think, Superintendent, you said that, I'm sorry, the word graduation reminded me that I know many, many, many people are starting to wonder about Albany High graduation and the other moving up ceremonies. Did you want to talk about that now, or do you want to talk about that as part of
I can address it. One of the things that is happening right now is administrators are working with their teachers. They're talking with I know that there are some student committees. So for example, at the high school, Ms. Comerford has started to engage the student council with regard to what some of these things may need to look like. And so that information as well will be forthcoming, but we have not forgotten about our students. We've not forgotten about our seniors. We will have a quality experience for them as best we can in a virtual environment so that we can celebrate our seniors, but also celebrate those students who are moving up. And so we are looking at what those options may be. And in terms of timeline, we know that time is moving very quickly, but we are still looking at what that timeline is at the end of the school year to have those celebrations for our students, as well as building in some celebrations along the way to help that recognition piece to keep it going.
Okay. Now, Albany High 2018-19 graduation.
So at this time, Ms. McKenna will give us this information with regard to the high school. And so thank you, Ms. McKenna.
You're welcome. So good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here tonight sharing the high school graduation rate data for the district in Albany High School. Before I jump into the actual data set, I just want to remind everyone about a few business rules that we need to be mindful of as we're looking at this data. You'll see 2 different sets of numbers as I go through the slides. You'll notice that there's a little bit of a difference between the district and the Albany High School data, and that is because the district's data includes our students who are placed out of district, but they still count towards our graduation rate. The cohort year is determined based on the first date of entry into 9th grade. And the 4-year August and 5- and 6-year cohorts are cumulative data sets, but you'll see both the June and the August data in here. And then just some additional information about the 2015 total cohort data consists of all students based on last year's enrollment record as of June 30th of 2019. With, again, the first date of enrollment or entry into 9th grade in the 2015-16 school year. But regardless of the cohort, students are reported in the school and district where they were last enrolled at the end of the reporting date. So that's important to remember as we're going through. The graduation rate is calculated using the number of graduation the number of graduates as of the indicated reporting date divided by the total cohort. And what you'll see in the next several slides is data around the 2015 cohort, 4-year June, 4-year August, and then 5- and 6-year graduation data. So this first table represents graduation rates for the 2015 cohort, meaning those students who first entered 9th grade in a New York State public school in 2015. I think the important thing to note here is that the overall graduation rate increased to 68%, up 1 percentage point from 67% for the 2014 cohort. June had a slight dip from 65% to 64%. But I do want an interesting point to note that I went back and I looked at some historical data, and when I looked back to a decade ago, the 2015 cohort graduation rate is up 17 percentage points than it was 10 years ago. And I think that's something to really celebrate in our district over the last decade. 17 percentage points is huge. This next table shows the number of students and specific outcomes for the 2015 cohort. As a reminder, there are 3 different types of graduates or diplomas. Graduates can earn a local diploma, a Regents diploma with advanced designation, or a Regents diploma without designation. In June of last year, there were 26% or 101 of the graduating cohort students who earned a Regents diploma with advanced designation, compared to 25% or 113 students this year. In June of last year, there were 42% of the graduating cohort students who earned a Regents diploma, compared to 65% this year. And then in June of last year, there were 8% or 53 students of the graduating cohort who earned a local diploma, compared to 10% this year. One last note about this table that I want to mention is that the August graduates tend to earn a local or a Regents diploma without an advanced designation. These are our students who just need a little more time to get across the finish line. And so you'll notice that there's a little bit of a difference there. This table is an expanded version from the prior table and includes the subgroup data for the district. As a note that these are the subgroups that the district is accountable for under the ESSA indicators or under the ESSA accountability rules. Last year, our Black subgroup graduated with 5% with advanced designation last year, compared to 7% this year. So we're seeing a trajectory, increased trajectory for our Black subgroup students. Regents without designation for the same subgroup, 44% compared to 40% last year, compared to 43% this year. A little bit of an increase, a decrease in that number. And with the Hispanic subgroup, we had 10% with advanced designation for the 2014 cohort, compared to 12% this year. Again, that's a 2% increase with that advanced designation. And then again, same without a Regents degree without designation, we had a slight decrease in those numbers. This slide, again, is the same as the previous slide, only for Albany High School. The subgroup information is very similar. 5% advanced designation for our Black subgroup, compared to 7% this year. Without designation, no change. 45% of our Black subgroup population graduated with a Regents degree without designation. We had a 2% increase with our Hispanic subgroup at Albany High School, graduating with advanced designation, 10% compared to 12% this year. Moving on to the next slide, this slide shows you a 4-year trend for Albany High School, and you'll notice that the all-student subgroup graduation rate has increased from 60% in June of 2016 to 65% in June of 2019. And this holds true for August, 62% in 2016 to 68% in 2019. So again, that positive upward trend. Note here that the Black subgroup graduation remains flat year over year, but has increased from 55% in June of 2016 to 60% in June of 2019. And again, same holds true for August, 57% for that same subgroup in 2016 to 64% in 2019, which is a pretty large increase of 7%. The white subgroup is up 5% year over year. And I do want to make note that the students with disabilities is up 6% year over year and 4% from June to August. Again, that's a great upward trend. So these next several slides will provide you with Albany High School data with an overlay of a state rate trend line. This is a graphical representation of the prior slide. And what this really shows is more clearly the consistent increase in the graduation rate, especially with our students with disabilities. You'll note that the trend is counter for our English language learners. And what I just want to make sure that I make note of is that this data represents an unusually high number of overage students entering the district and not having the ability to meet their graduation requirements prior to their 21st birthday. It has been a focus this year, and an action plan has been created in order to get our eligible Ls over the finish line this year for graduation. Tom Giglio has working with the Albany leadership team to put these action plans in motion and ensure that we're meeting the needs of our Ls and getting them over that finish line. I think also a note of celebration on this slide is that our American Indian Alaskan Native subgroup graduation rate actually exceeded the state, and that's something to be celebrated. Moving on to the next one. I won't go over again this in detail, but this is the same graphic as previous, except it's for August. We see consistent internal gains with the most groups that are proportional to the state trends in terms of percentage increase. This graphical representation shows a 3-year trend by diploma type compared to New York State for June graduates. There are no real conclusions other than we have higher rates of dropout and still enrolled students. But I'll talk a little bit about that more in just a minute. This is the same graphic as previous, except for our August graduates, and same conclusions. Okay, so what happened to the rest of the 2015 cohort? We know that based on previous slides, there were 704 students in the 2015 cohort. What this table paints a picture of are the students who didn't graduate in June or August of 2019. And you'll notice that there were nearly 100 students that were still enrolled after the August graduation. In addition, there were 115 students who are categorized as dropouts. But I just want to point of clarification here in that dropout number. This doesn't necessarily always mean that the students dropped out of school. If they moved to another state outside of New York State, as an example, but didn't notify the school district, we had to drop them and count them as a student. They were counted as a student as a dropout, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they were a dropout. It's just how we had to categorize them. This next slide shows, again, a 3-year graduation comparison by cohort. We see that there's a 2% increase from the 2013 June cohort to the 2015 cohort, 64%. And we also know that students sometimes require a little more time to meet the graduation requirements. And so you'll notice that the August graduation rate has increased by 4% from the 2013 to the 2015 cohort. And that's important. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. This slide shows the same upward trend that we are seeing with the 4-year graduation cohort. This is the 5- and the 6-year cohort. We're seeing a 4% increase in the 5-year graduation rate and a 3% increase for the 6-year graduation rate. And this is important for 2 reasons. First and foremost, and most importantly, more students are graduating, and that's our goal. But secondly, under the ESSA accountability measures, the 5 and 6-year graduation rates are used for accountability purposes for the district and the high school. And so we can't lose sight of our 5-year and 6-year graduates and getting them across that finish line as well. So in summary, achievement gaps are starting to narrow. However, we have much work to do, and we're all rolling up our sleeves and we're doing that important work. Overall, the district and the school's graduation rate trend continues upward, and we remain focused on bringing educational equity to all of our City School District of Albany students. So what are we doing to continue the upward trajectory? As you can see from this slide, we have a lot of initiatives to increase our graduation rate. Our district and building level teams are constantly monitoring the data through RTI teams, even post-COVID-19 closure. They're engaging in conversations around students and common planning teams. The academy principals, under the leadership of Principal Comerford, are monitoring their seniors on a, I would say on a, if not daily, if not weekly, on a daily basis, as are the school counselors with their senior meetings as well. We also are providing options for our students in order to ensure that we are providing them with a program to meet their unique needs. We have special programming over at Tony Clement for students who need a smaller school setting. We have the Albany International Center that provides a unique provides a unique learning opportunity for our students who are new to the country. And we also offer night school to students who are over age but under credit, and we accelerate their ability to earn credit and graduate from high school. We're also utilizing our homeschool coordinators and our academy assistant principals and our student support teams to really get out there and what we call saturate the streets, and really get out there and knock on those doors and have conversations with families and students, and really engage them in ways outside of the regular school day to ensure that they are taking full advantage and opportunity of the amazing programs and supports that we have available at Albany High School. There's also academic supports for students. There's mentoring, extended learning time opportunities, including summer school, Regents Review classes after school, and after school tutoring. And then the Albany High School leadership also offers senior assemblies 3 times per year to talk about graduation requirements and what they need to do in order to get over that finish line. But I just want to mention that these are all happening even though we are not in traditional school. You know, we still have those initiatives. We made sure that our seniors were prioritized and had the technology that they needed in order to engage in online learning. Our teams are still monitoring their seniors by academy, again, meeting weekly and sometimes daily with the academy principals. Counselors reviewed all of their seniors in January, and they are continuing to monitor those seniors to get them to the finish line. And we're also, the high school team is also following up with those hard to reach students that are sometimes difficult to engage in traditional in school. But an interesting point that I do want to make mention of in conversation with Principal Comerford and Vice Principal Gilmore is they are finding that some of those hard to reach students are actually engaging in this online learning platform, which I think we often talk about the silver lining. It allows us to reimagine what we can do differently for some of our hard to reach students. And I know we have the Apex that we're engaging on online learning with some of these hard to reach students too. But some of these hard to reach students have hardships that sometimes just prevents them from engaging in traditional schools. So it just has presented some real opportunities for us to re-engage these hard to reach students. And that's a testament to the hard work and the leadership of Albany High School and all of the staff there. But before I open it up to questions, and since we just reviewed the 2015 cohort graduation data, there are just a couple of other points I want to make mention. And Superintendent Adams already did mention it, but I'm just going to reiterate. I don't want us to forget about our 2020 graduates, the 2016 cohort, and we'll be talking about them and their data in next year. So the Albany High School leadership is planning some exciting events and activities to celebrate our 2020 graduates. Principal Comerford met with about 100 seniors on Monday to get their input and suggestions around ways to celebrate their time at Albany High School. And she will be meeting with them again in 2 weeks. So we'll be excited to share more detailed information with all of you as details are finalized and we can unveil some of those exciting things. But some of the things we do want to be a surprise for our seniors as well. We've also had the opportunity to look at ways to better prepare our students and ensure that they are leaving our high school, college, and career ready. We've reimagined the way that we could deliver the foundational skills and fundamental key ideas for college and career readiness in a more efficient way than in the current delivery model. And I just want to remind folks that since the 2016-17 school year, I believe, all 9th graders were required to take the college and career readiness, or CCR class as we know it, which is a half credit course that is conducted every other day. And so we've reimagined what those fundamental key ideas and foundational skills could look like without putting this half credit course in a 9th grader schedule. And so while students may not be scheduled into a standalone CCR class beginning in the fall, the foundational skills and fundamental key ideas for the college and career readiness will be incorporated into other classes or independent online modules monitored by school counselors, for example. And one of the avenues that we're exploring is through Naviance, which is an online system that helps students, families, and school counselors manage the college application process and also has a college and career readiness component. And so we'll be looking at those online modules for students and exploring possibilities for delivery. So I just wanted to make those 2 points before I open it up to questions.
Thank you, Ms. McKenna. That was very helpful. Both the very detailed report, I really appreciated the detailed attention to the subgroup data and the complexity of the way high school graduation data is reported. You really did a great job of encapsulating it for us, and I really appreciate that. And also for those last 2 more human interest pieces, which I know everybody is really focused on out in the community on those graduation and how we are going to celebrate our 2020 graduates, who deserve an extraordinary extra celebration for having their high school years end this way. And we'd love to support whatever it is that comes out of the school. Board colleagues, who has a question for Ms. McKenna? Ms. Wilson and then Ms. Craig.
Hello, thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
First question is, and I'm certain that maybe on the back end you have this data, but do you ever drill, not you, but do we drill down to the level of also gender for the populations we're responsible for? E.g., like, for example, Black students, do we see whether it's predominantly male or female in these numbers? And does that inform our response and our sort of strategies in helping move the needle?
Yeah, so as you know, each school in the district has to create a school comprehensive education plan. And one of the indicators in the high school's plan is graduation rate. And so they have a very detailed plan that drills down to not only gender, but down to the specific student, and develops an individual plan to meet their individual needs for graduation. So yes, they absolutely do look at that data in detail.
Ms. Krejci?
Sure. My question was about, you mentioned at the end that we're reimagining the way that we're delivering the college and career readiness part that was done in the standalone 9th grade class. If they're being done in independent online modules or traditional classes, how does that work? For example, would they be maybe in some sections of a 9th grade ELA class, but not others? And the other thing is, if they're done through Naviance or some other independent system, would they still be mandatory and would they be graded?
So we're still working through what the logistics of what it actually looks like and which classes will embed those modules in. But what I want to, I think the one important thing that I want to make mention of is that college and career readiness begins in the middle school. And it's not just a high school standalone type of an effort. It's actually a part of a larger plan that is in alignment with our City School District of Albany guidance plan that is governed by New York State. And so, I don't know whether I've answered your question or not, but you know, they will be monitored, not necessarily. You know, I don't want to get into there's still a lot of planning to be done. And so I hesitate to talk about how these will be incorporated into a student's grade and which courses or contents they'll be embedded in, or whether there'll be an independent component to it, just because we haven't worked out all of the details of this.
Thank you. That was helpful. I just want to ensure that if it's being done, that it's meaningful and that the kids take it seriously.
Absolutely.
So I was looking at the chart which had the histograms based on all the different subgroups, and you know, thank you for the explanation about the ELL students as to why that drop was so significant. And just to ground us in reality, yes, we have a higher percentage of graduation than the New York state line for American Indian. But there's only one student, right? So if that student hadn't graduated, we would have been horrible. But my question was actually going to be in terms of the Asian students and the multiracial students. Why do we have a 5% drop in those two subgroups?
Oh, there's a clear trend. So again, it's statistically, you know, when you look at the numbers, it's difficult, and I'd have to pull up the exact numbers for this. You know, thanks, Kent. I'll have to get back to you on that. I can't answer. I can't answer that.
I know I looked at multiracial when we first looked at this data a while ago, and it's a really small cohort.
Yeah,
it's really a small number, so it kind of it's not, you can't really draw a trend when it's such a small one. I don't remember the other cohort. What was the other one you were asking about?
The Asian cohort, which is like 69 or 70 students.
Yeah, that's a larger one. It's interesting.
They seem to be doing okay, and then there was a big drop.
They go down. Yeah. We can get back to you on that.
Right? I mean, when you're talking 14% increase, 5% becomes a bigger number. It's all relative.
Mr. Alingawi, did you have a question?
So, I know you had briefly discussed the English language or non-native speakers drop, and thank you for that. That was actually major concern of mine, but I also wanted to point out a really large spike that I saw that student with disabilities went up something like almost 20% graduation rate for students with disabilities. Now, can you attribute that to something? Anything?
Yeah. Yep. And so it's, you know, a testament to, you know, building leadership and also district leadership in really identifying what their needs are and paying attention to our out of district students as well. And our the director and assistant directors have really been working closely with our out district placed schools to ensure that they are also meeting the graduation requirement in order to graduate, you know, with their cohort. But there, you know, the programs that we have in place to support our students with disabilities has, in the model that under Jody's leadership has been put in place at Albany High School, has really supported the needs of students with disabilities.
I wanted to ask you a question about, well, first I'm just going to make a comment because I think it's such an interesting little trivial piece of the data. I think I may have mentioned it when we talked about this briefly a while ago. When I looked at the economically disadvantaged students versus non-economically disadvantaged students, at 4 years, we've got about a 9% gap in graduation rate from the 4-year rate. But then when you look at the 6-year rate, our economically disadvantaged students are actually graduating at a slightly higher rate than our non-disadvantaged students. So I just find that really to be an interesting thing when you look at the 6-year rate. I don't know if you can see it on your slides, but when I looked at the data that NYSED provided, I was really struck by that. I'm just wondering, something is happening for those students, those students who really need that extra time are taking advantage of it to get to that 6-year rate. And so I just wanted to note that, and I will jump off on that to the question of regulations. And as you were saying earlier, some children are doing better in this time when they have a little more flexibility with the schedule, a little better way of integrating that with their already complex lives. Those are those same kids, right, who have really complicated lives. And I'm wondering if Cabinet can keep an eye on regulatory changes they'd like to see to make that possible for kids to graduate that would not currently be allowable. I know the words reimagining are very complicated right now because the governor has used them in different ways that perhaps have connotations that we don't all mean. So yep. I'm hesitant to use those particular words, but I do think it's important for us to recognize that all students are not the same and all students do not need the same thing. And while we as a district believe very strongly in the power of teaching and the power of teachers and teaching directly teachers to students, we also recognize that different students have different needs. And that particular unique segment of hard to reach students who have complicated lives really maybe could benefit from something unique. And the regulations are not designed that way. The regulations are designed for kids who can come to school every day. And I would love to be part of a lobbying effort that looked for specific regulatory changes to make it possible for us to help our kids who really need those changes.
I agree. And when I used that word reimagine, I thought exactly what you just said. I'm like, why did I use that word?
Oh, you're so good. Find a different one. Anybody else have a comment or a question? Ms. Will?
Thank you. So it's funny because Ellen's question led to my second question being addressed about pushing down into middle school, because one of my favorite quotes in recent history has to go something along the lines of college begins in 8th grade. So I did hear you address that we are, pushing down into middle school for support to basically increase and support graduation. And ironically, Anne jumped in also about the hard to reach students. I was also wondering about, maybe there's something fierce, and rugged, independent about these students that they could benefit from a independent study model, or even early graduation, which we kind of sort of have for students who are academically excelling. But I was also wondering if there could be something like that where, even a fusion with a Brookings, so they start, they finish high school earlier, but yet they're already earning money in a career and things of that nature. So those were the last two pins I wanted to stick in there.
Absolutely. Yes, we'll take a look at those ideas. Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? I had one more, but I don't want to jump in if others have a question. My question also had to go with looking downwards. Some years, and I'm not sure if it's come in this presentation or a different one, we've seen freshman, sophomore, junior year, how many credits they have, how many students are at the place they need to be at to ensure that they're going to be able to graduate. And I can't remember if it normally comes as part of this graduation rate presentation or at a different time, but I've always found that very informative. And I wondered if you had if you could speak to that off the cuff, or if you'd like to provide that some other time in terms of how we're doing on getting our freshmen, sophomores, juniors moving along at the right pace.
Yeah, I know the exact report that you're talking about, and it's not included in this graduation rate presentation. We typically include that in an SBU, and we can certainly get that information to you.
If you think it's a good time, if it's a meaningful time to do it, I do find it very helpful. It really shows that we're on track, because if I recall correctly, the last time we saw it, our freshman year, that would be this year's sophomores, were well ahead of any past freshman cohort in terms of having achieved that 5 credits that we know sets them on the right trajectory. So I'm assuming that we're still in a good place for them, but I would love to see the data to support that.
Absolutely.
Anybody else before we move on to the next topic? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. McKenna, and thank Principal Connor for her back work on this, which I'm sure was important to the effort as well. And that brings us now to the question of the night, the 2020-21 budget.
So good evening again. And so Ms. Roaring and we are very happy to present this information. While the news may not be what we would like it to be, we know that it is important information that we need to deliver and share out. And so at this time, I will turn it over to, well, I'll start with, as we begin, always making sure that we are in alignment with our vision, our mission, and our goals. And then the purpose of this presentation is to make sure that we are keeping the board updated with regard to our progress as we look to close our gap within our budget and share out those strategies that we are implementing to close the gap. Many of these slides that you are going to see are repeat slides from previous presentations, but we do feel it's important to always make sure that we're reminding everyone of what some of those revenue adjustments are and those kinds of things as we move forward. So at this time, I will turn it over to Ms. Roaring.
Thank you. As we look at the possible revenue adjustments, we have reached the first period of look back, and we have been advised that we should receive any information about adjustments to our revenue by May 15th. So we are anxiously awaiting that information. We have sorted out the charter school tuition information for next year, and while our charter school tuition rate is going down by about $140, we have 2 schools within our district boundaries, KIPP and Green Tech, that will be expanding next year. History shows that when that happens, we see up to 90 additional students enrolling in those schools, so we want to make sure that we are adequately accounting for that shift next year as well. We look at our adjusted rollover budget. That is that increase of about $15 million. 10 million of that is associated with salary and benefits for our staff. And this shows that pictorially, so you can see salaries and benefits are about 63% of our annual budget. Tuition, which is something else that we have very little influence over, is about 16%, and our debt service is a little under 7%. This shows the revenue changes for 2021. Our state aid increase is just over $1 million. Our tax levy is anticipated to be 2.3 for an overall increase in revenue of 1.2 million. This is several different tax levy scenarios for the board to consider and what those may look like. Looking at the revenue by category, you'll see we have an increase in our interest fees and reimbursements, as well as our state aid. We are also anticipating an adjustment, or reduction, I should say, in our appropriated fund balance for next year. So our overall revenue increase is less than 0.5%. We look at our budget increase drivers and reductions. We started out with a $15 million rollover increase. We have continued to work at adjustments that we can make to the budget to bring it into alignment. At the last meeting on April 23rd, we had realized reductions of 7.1 million. And I believe Ms. Adams is going to pick up with where we are today.
And so when we look at where we are today, we've been able to make some program adjustments and look at where we may be able to combine some of the deliveries of service and looking at consolidation. And so we're able to see some increases there. We see the contract services, there's a reduction in service, and we have some of our partners are going on hiatus for 1 year due to the structure of their program and trying to make those changes with regard to social distancing. And so those contracts are being put on hold, so we're able to recoup those funds in that area. With transportation, there's a noted increase in some of our alternatively placed students, our homeless students, et cetera. And so we want to make sure that we're in a position to address their transportation needs. And you also see the charter school tuition that we're able to insert in that space so that we have a dollar amount there. And so you look at, we are at $9.9 million right now in budget adjustments, and how that impacts our current budget gap is that it brings us to a $3.8 million gap, which is headed in the right direction. It is headed in the right direction. When we look at our next steps beyond that, what do we need to do continuing to balance the budget? We have had conversations with all three of our bargaining units with regard to retirement incentives. And so we will be investigating what that does as we look at the numbers and that impact on the budget with regard to what those retirement incentives may do, because even though someone retires, it doesn't necessarily mean, so for example, if someone were to take the initiative, it doesn't mean that that position is vacant and that it is a complete, quote, savings for the district. It may be a position that we cannot dissolve, and then we would need to hire someone, and then that person would come in at a lower rate. And so that would be the breakage that we would look at as savings. And so that requires a little bit of number crunching and seeing where we are. And we are engaging in those conversations with our bargaining units so that we can see what that retirement incentive may look like. We will be looking at additional reductions in positions, again, as we look to consolidate some of the services, delivery of instruction, and then additional reductions in our non-salary areas. So as we explore other contracts, as we explore other pieces that are pieces to our budget that we may be able to reduce, we will continue to look at that so that we can have minimal, if that can even be achieved right now, minimal impact on our classroom. And then as the board has asked us to look into the impact of a salary freeze, but this is an item that would have to be negotiated with the bargaining units. And so we're looking at other alternatives prior to getting to that point, but these are all things that are up for discussion. And so Ms. Roaring, in continuing the process.
We're going to continue to further review any budget adjustments that we need to make to come in line with our budgeted revenue of $261.5 million. We're going to continue to respond to board questions and incorporate feedback that received from the board and the community as we work through this budget process and prepare a proposed budget to the board for consideration. Looking at our budget calendar, we have some meetings coming up. We were scheduled to meet again on May 12th, May 14th, May 19th. Our first legal notice will go out for publication on Tuesday, May 12th. We are looking at a possible adoption of the budget on the 19th. Our last date of adoption would be May 21st. The property tax report card will be filed with SED no later than that May 22nd date. And then we're backing into those dates for the public hearing, the budget newsletter, and ultimately the vote on June 9th.
So this year, our voting process is going to be different. According to the executive order from the governor, we are looking at 100% absentee ballots. The ballots will be mailed to all of our registered voters, but they will be mailed after the board approves the budget. The date of submission is no later than 5 p.m. on June 9th, which is the voting day. We will have updates that we will, as this process is being developed and worked out, because this is new for all of the districts involved. We are really charting new territory on how to accomplish this task. And so we are learning from each other. We're working together, trying to iron out some of the details. So we encourage everyone to please check the website and any mailers that we are distributing so that you have the most current information and for additional information. So at this time, are there questions?
Board colleagues, I wonder if you would humor me by working backwards. Can you forward one more slide? There's one slide past the budget calendar slide, which is the budget vote process. No, not going to get that slide. It's there. Board colleagues, you can look at it on the version that's on board docs. There's just the last slide in the presentation is about the budget vote process, the absentees and how that's going to work, which is entirely and utterly new for us. So I'm thinking that we could ask questions about that slide first so that we can get through the process piece. Then we could go back to the calendar and then we could go to the money. So if everybody would humor that, I think if Tabitha, did you have a question about that? I saw your hand go up. So Tabitha and then Damaris and then Ellen on the budget vote process only, the very last slide.
Very sorry, I'm coming off of mute and I'm looking at the last slide, so forgive me, I'm trying to do both. I'm only working with one computer tonight, so. Okay, my question is very, and maybe it's too soon, but for the ballot itself, this is kind of a two-part question, so it's not two questions, but it's going to be a unique to the City School District of Albany ballot, yes? So is there any room for someone to say, I didn't receive it in the mail, and thus, how do they get one? Like, do they print it from a website? So that's my overall question about that.
There will be a process for a request for a ballot if they did not get one, but the company that we use, NTS, they have a copy of our rolls as it is, so they know who our registered voters are. And that's a good thing about being able to use them because they already have the roster. It's just a matter of we would have to develop that process where if they did not receive a ballot, what would that request process be and how we would end up getting that to them.
Okay, excellent. And that's self-addressed return, or they have to do the stamp themselves?
It will be well, for us, it's you would be able to return it to us without paying for it. We would definitely have that taken care of. So it'll be pre-addressed and pre-stamped.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Mann.
Do we have any idea what the cost to mailing out the ballots will come to?
We are looking at that. We have a breakdown of roughly $1.50 or so per item. And so we're looking at what that's going to be. And so our board clerk, Ms. Bowie, is working on getting those numbers for us. because it is more than just that. It's
Right.
mailing them, it's the cost of the envelope, the cost of the stamps. I mean, there's several pieces to the puzzle, so it's not just one thing. And so
Right.
she will be working on that.
Thank you.
It's great, Chi.
I just had questions. Sorry, I just had questions to the extent that we have any guidance on how the ballots will be counted, you know, whether they will be, I know that there's also a Board of Election position as well as the budget coming up in this election. So whether we'll be having Scantron or machine readable ballots, if we have a machine that can read the ballots, and just how they'll be counted, because I know in the past we've been able to count ballots at the Board of Election, you know, that's open to the public. And I would imagine it wouldn't be now. So I'm curious if there's been any guidance on any of that you can share.
So at this point, as far as the details of it, we have not worked through that yet, but at a very high level, the district will be responsible for counting those ballots. Now, what the guidelines are and the guidance would be surrounding that, those are things that we have to work out.
So I'm going to tag on to that, which, Ellen, that was really my crux of my question back from the routine consent. In addition to the school board member election, we also have the library trustee election, and we have a bond referendum, or not bond referendum, but the acquisition referendum that we did in routine consent tonight. So it's going to be at least 2 yes/no votes and at least 2 voting for humans votes, right? Because we've got library and budget. So I think a lot of districts, it's a very simple yes, no kind of counting. But for a district like ours, which has a library district as part of it, it's a much more complicated kind of counting. And I would just encourage you, whenever possible, in whatever way possible, to look for ways that we can use a scannable ballot. I'm extremely concerned about being able to do this with accuracy and integrity. And we're going to see absentees at a volume we've never, ever considered before, right? Because normally we only get, like, let's say 3,000 people, between 3,000 and 5,000 people vote in school board elections generally in the May election. And now we're going to be mailing those to 47,000 people. Even if 20% return them, that's a lot more absentees than we've ever faced. So we need to not underestimate how long it's going to take to count those.
So if I may, our secretaries have been awesome in working alongside Ms. Bowie. They have made contact with NTS, and because we have used scanners in the past, looking at how each of those ballots could be barcoded so that we can have scanners versus the hand tallying. And so even that is still an enormity, but it's better than trying to figure out how many stacks of yeses, how many stacks of nos, how many stacks of this one for each question. And so they have already been working to make sure that we have scanners available right now. I know that we will have about 11 scanners that we would be able to use. If we need more, we will start working with them as we start to see how we break down the work. We'll see where we are. But those are the things that are in progress. So we absolutely understand what you're saying, and we share that because that is a huge concern with if there are 4 items on the ballot and you're trying to tally the vote and there are 20,000 pieces of paper that come into us, that's a lot to try and do manually. So we are working on getting those scanners because we know that would be a huge help for us.
And I'd like to keep open the possibility that, and I know NTS has been a wonderful partner to us, and we have a contract with them actually, although I suppose this is a different kind of election, so I don't know whether that contract actually is enforceable in this environment. But if we could get somebody else to do a Scantron ballot and mail it, and not have to have individual people scanning, even that 20,000 times is a real potential for error. A scannable ballot, similar to what Board of Elections uses, which I know we can't access their machines based on what you told me in routine consent, although I wonder if we only needed 1 machine or 2 machines, whether they might be able to make those available to us if we could find a way to print and mail real ballots. NTS has our data, but honestly, everybody has our data because that is publicly available information. It's foilable. I could get it tomorrow by submitting a FOIL request, right? So that's not, just because they have the data doesn't make them the only vendor in town for doing mailing. So I just
And they
want
also have a format. They have the format for being able to get it out without a lot of additional cost. But we'll have to see about that. But absolutely, we will definitely look into that.
Yeah, and then I think I mentioned this to you before the meeting when I saw you, that I also want to have us thinking carefully about observation of this process.
Yes.
Generally, everybody who's working for the vote is working, is being paid by the City School District of Albany, right? All of our poll inspectors are paid by us. And I think that creates an opportunity for people to be concerned about the process. And so anything we can do to have observers in the room, physically in the room, who do not work for us, who are not employed by us, and or video observation for the members of the general public. I know that would create some privacy concerns, but somehow to have video observation, I think would go a long way to making people feel confident about the integrity of this process.
Thank you.
Other, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. And I can appreciate that we have a schedule now for presentations and things. And I'm wondering if there's any opportunities, and I know time is of the essence and we're under crunch in many ways, but being that we have this climate now where some people are home, some people are essential workers and they're not home, but some people are home during the day. Is there some flexibility with the way we do the budget presentations, e.g. I know in the
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on the slide about how we're going to count the absentees or the ballots? I shouldn't call them absentees anymore. How that process is going to work, how the mailing is going to work. So everybody's kind of good on that. Let's go back one slide to talk about the budget calendar. This is not new. This is something we've looked at previously. Ms. Krejci.
I apologize. I had a question that just popped into my head at this moment, which is, so we mail out absentee ballots to everybody. What happens if they come back removed? What happens if they come back returned?
We don't have the process developed yet, so that's something we would have to address.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, on to the budget calendar. So this is the calendar that we looked at last time. It's, I think, similar or very close to what we looked at last time with the changes towards the end, now that we know what the budget vote day is. I know that we have all been anticipating this, but I just wanted to express it verbally that next, let's see, today's the 5th, so next time we meet, the 12th, that's we anticipate, and I think Superintendent, this is when you anticipate presenting a zero gap budget, right? A balanced budget. We should expect to see that for next time.
One of the things that we would like to amend is that because looking at where we are with different positions and the volume of that conversation that needs to happen, if we don't have it ready for the 12th, that we would definitely be looking at the 14th.
Okay, that is, we'll have to do with what we can, of course. We understand, and I really appreciate your respectful way you're dealing with this. In reality, folks, know that some people are not going to be working for the City School District of Albany next year who would like to be working for the City School District of Albany for one reason or another. And having those is being impacted at a public board meeting is extremely respectful to the humanity of those people, and I really appreciate that. So I'm hopeful that we can come pretty darn close to a zero budget for next time, because that still only gives the board a week from the time we first see the zero balanced budget to the time we have to adopt the budget, which is really, really tight. And up till this time, what we've seen has been very generic, right? We've seen dollars and amounts, but we haven't really gotten down to, and I know we've talked about possible ways to present this information, which programs are going to be impacted, which
Correct.
things are really different. And so that, I think we need to start seeing that on the 12th if we can't really
Okay.
see it in completeness. Otherwise, it just becomes difficult for the board to process and also difficult for the community to provide meaningful feedback to the board if they have less than a week to do that.
Okay.
So as early as we can, I think would be really, really helpful. And I know that goes to this question of whether we can negotiate a salary freeze. If we can't negotiate a salary freeze, and we can't get a commitment to that, we have to balance the budget. And that's going to mean more impact on staffing. There's just no way, there's no two ways around that. So unfortunately, I know that we would all like more time to negotiate with our teachers who we love and want to keep all employed and believe they're doing a fantastic job, and our other bargaining units as well. But the reality is we need to submit that budget by May 22nd, very latest. And we have decisions that need to be made. So we need to plan for no salary freeze if we don't know there will be a salary freeze. So that's unfortunate but true. I'm going to go with Vicki and then Tabitha.
Yes, I just wanted to echo President Savage's words there. I think this has been the worst time in my time on the board, and we're coming down to the wire, and I know you all have worked so hard, but I want to just agree that we as a board need to have some more solid numbers as sooner rather than later, just so that we can do our due diligence. And I know you're doing the best you can and already aware of that, but I know we're pushing, continuing to push. But that also means that, and I want to echo what I said one of the our last meeting, is that I do hope our bargaining units are able to come to the table and really think through and consider a freeze, because I think that will be less harmful overall to staff, those who are going to be without a job, but also to our broader educational community. And we recognize how difficult and hard this budget is going to be. But I'm hoping, and maybe in some ways pleading with the bargaining units to come to the table with this in mind. I think also it also means that you're right, we don't have a lot of time to get some greater detail out to the public. So we're crunched there. I did want to ask, I know we had a meeting with one of the neighborhood associations Monday, and I was interested, could you also just speak about how that went, and will we need to do any other additional kind of work? I mean, there's just basically no time, and we do have a big public hearing that certainly groups can participate in, and we can do all of our due diligence to make sure those groups are informed about that hearing date. But I wondered if what came back from that meeting, and if there is other means that we need to do to communicate to the community. Thank you.
So I attended the meeting, and so did President Savage. We were at Cana, and we shared out the primary question was about what we're doing during COVID-19. So we shared out that information, and then we shared out the nuts and bolts of our budget, where we are with our gap, what are the things that we're looking at. They had some, very good questions about, the process and about what things were going to perhaps be eliminated. And we did talk about the fact that we have looked at attrition as much as we can. We did talk about the fact that we are looking at retirement incentives to see where we stand with that. They asked a question about salary freezes, and we said that that is a negotiated item. And so those things we discussed just as we have discussed here. We did talk a little bit about the calendar, mainly just letting them know about the budget vote day being June 9th. And then knowing that we will be available once the budget has been passed, we would be available to do additional presentations about where we are in the budget so that they could see exactly where we stand. And President Savage was very good when she said, when it goes out to the public for the presentation, it will be a zero balanced budget. And so we absolutely, we've heard the message loud and clear. We will be working to make sure that we get to that balanced zero budget.
Okay, I've actually lost the thread a little bit, but I think we're still on the budget calendar. Anybody else have questions on this budget or that budget calendar slide?
I have a question about the ballot again. I know that, for example, with actual voting, we always advise people not to take selfies and things like that. So I'm just wondering if that communication has to occur also for the ballots being mailed.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Ms. Wilson? I'm sorry.
Sure. You know how when people go into the booth, we advise them, you know, as a culture, we say, don't take a selfie with your ballot and things. So I'm thinking we have to, or we may have to include some communication about that.
I can address that. One of the things with the barcoding that we are looking at through NTS is there would be a barcode so that we would know which ballots come in. And so when they come in, they would be scanned as this one, you know, so this one was returned. So there's that checks and balance there.
So just to be clear for anybody who hasn't been through this process, the ballot, the scan in that you have voted becomes completely separated from how you voted. There are two documents that are separate. So your scan that you did vote, but that has no tie to how you voted, which is exactly how it works now. Everybody, the fact that you voted is going to be foiled both for your primary votes, your general votes, your school district vote. That is public information by law. How you voted is a different question, and that is obviously private and secret ballot. And so that's the exact way absentees work. Ellen, I know, has watched the absentee opening a couple of times and knows how that envelope separation works, but that would be the same process. But it sounds like we will be upping our game technologically because we're going to be counting so many ballots to scan them in instead of just handwriting them in.
So yeah, exactly. It's the same as when you walk in and sign in. It's the same. It's just a different way of doing that.
Okay. Are we ready? Oh, Dr. Sturck.
Sorry. I have a question regarding the look back period. You know, the state, I just was trying to figure out, you know, when do we expect to know something from the state? Because there's all these other things that have to happen. You create a zero balance budget, and yet there could be $8 million in the hole, for all you know.
The expectation is by the 15th, and if something comes out then, it could be any time between now and the 15th. And if anything comes out where there would be additional cuts, then we would come back with, here's what our look back is, and now here are the additional cuts that we are looking at.
Okay.
So the timing on that actually does go to this, because May 12th in our dreams would have a zero-based budget, but that would be zero-based prior to any additional budget cuts from the governor, right? So we fully, I think, all expect that that will be a further cut. And I believe Ms. Roaring said that was expected on the 15th. So that would be the 19th would be our first time to see that, which would be the day we have to adopt the budget, right? Right. So that's very, very difficult. And I continue to encourage you strongly to try and get to zero for the 12th so that we at least have a place that we're starting from that's zero. Otherwise, we're just still at sea. And I was not on the board during these board meetings, but I do know back in 2007, 2008, when this happened, they had multiple board meetings that went on into the wee hours as they wrestled with these difficult decisions. And I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible. And now I'm wondering if we need to anticipate a board meeting, and I'm not, you know me, I don't like to meet unless we absolutely have to meet, but I think we should at least consider and hold on our calendar meetings on the 16th, 17th, and 18th, right? Just in case, because the May 15th, we're going to get another cut, we think. We need to have more than one meeting before we're going to be able to adopt the budget, unless we get a better information than we expect. So I'm not setting those meeting dates now, but I'm asking everybody to kind of mentally hold that whole week, because we're going to have to react extremely agilely, that's not a word, with extreme agility to what we hear from the governor's office on May 15th. Which may mean we don't meet on the 14th, actually, right? Is there a value to us meeting on the 14th if we're going to get the governor's announcement on the 15th? I think we just need to think this all through as we get closer to it. Did you have your hand up, Ed?
I did. My comment is, I think you raise a really good point about maybe not meeting on the 14th, maybe changing the meeting from the 14th to the 15th. And sorry to get in the weeds. I wouldn't necessarily, maybe we have questions about whether it would be appropriate to meet on Saturday or Sunday, because the 16th and 17th are over the weekend, but I think meeting on the 15th and the 18th would make sense given the schedule we've seen coming, that we've heard of coming from the governor's office.
Yeah, why don't we give this a little bit of thinking time? We can talk about it again on the 12th, because I also think we need to anticipate the time that Ms. Roaring, who has been doing a magical job pivoting quickly as she's been dealing with these surprises all throughout the budgeting process. If we get the announcement from the governor on the 15th, she needs at least a minute to figure out how to integrate that, and the superintendent and the cabinet need time to think about what, I know they've been doing some pre-thinking because everybody knows that it's happening, but when push comes to shove and we know what our real state aid is, it's going to get even more complicated. So let's hold on making this decision until we talk at the 12th, right? We're going to definitely meet on the 12th, and then we can think harder about how this impacts the work of the cabinet and the superintendent and the deputy superintendent, and when it makes real sense for us to meet. Okay, so far we've talked about how you vote for the budget, and we've talked about when we're going to talk about the budget. So now let's talk about the budget. Any questions about the main body of the presentation, about the money in, the money out, knowing full well that the superintendent is intentionally not being very specific about program impacts so that she can respectfully share that information with the impacted folks? I know everybody who has those conversations knows with the superintendent knows that the final decision about programming is something that's done cooperatively with the board, and so it's never final until the board adopts the budget. Nonetheless, it's totally respectful to make sure people have that insight that they may be losing their program. Ms. Krejci, your question.
This isn't a question as much as a noticing, but it's just a thank you to our assistant superintendent Roaring and our superintendent Adams for the creativity and the work they've put in identifying ways that we can cut and ways that we can cut and preserve the staff and the teachers for our students. I'm noticing when I look at the slide for the budget increase drivers and reductions, which I don't know what slide the number that is, but I look at the rollover increases and then I look at the most recent adjustments, and I see numerous areas where we're not only eliminating any increase in spending from this year, but we're also significantly reducing spending in some areas. So I just wanted to highlight that and thank you for coming up with these ways that we can be tighter and leaner, but still be there for our kids.
Member Krejci, thank you very much, but it is not one or two people. It is the entire work of cabinet working together to think about and be very thoughtful about how we can still deliver services for our students, and then their work as it extends out to the departments and to our administrators, and then that work as it extends out to our teachers to understand what that delivery of instruction needs to look like. So while I thank you on behalf of all of us who have worked together at all different levels to see where we can streamline our budget during these unprecedented times and the lean times that we're in right now. So thank you very much for that. But I really do push it out to everyone that I work alongside, cabinet and our administrators and our teachers working together.
Board colleagues, who has another question? we're all in stunned sadness about the level of cuts we're going to have to make. I have one question about the way retirement buyouts or early retirement. Oh, sorry, I muted myself by accident there. Might impact the budget. And my understanding, the best I understand it, is that we would be looking for that breakage that we talked about, right? We would be looking for a reduction in basically the cost of staffing, right? That's what the benefit is to us of somebody retiring who might not otherwise benefit to us financially, often not a benefit to our children, since many of those teachers are some of our best teachers who I love most dearly. But just understanding it from the board level, we would have to make some educated estimate about how many retirees and what that breakage is going to be. Now, we know already some people have put their papers in and we know they're planning to retire and they have committed to retire. But by next week, when we have to start making these decisions, we're not going to have any finality on that. So I'm assuming that part of the work being done by the deputy superintendent will be to make an estimate of how much additional breakage we hope to achieve through any kind of retirement package or retirement buyout. Is that about how it's going to work?
Ms. Rory?
There's a couple of ways of going at this. So we would make some educated guesses and then we would have the alternative. So if we do not realize retirement incentive savings because individuals select not to take the packages offered, what we would have to do to get to that balanced budget. So we would have kind of a dual path going forward at this time.
Okay. Ms. Krejci.
I hesitate to even ask this question, but have we calculated what the numbers would be, what numbers we'd be working with if we were forced to go with a contingency budget next year if our budget vote did not pass? Which is not to say, not that we have a budget for that amount, because there'd be no way, but if we have a number at the end of the day as to what our revenues would be if we had to use it.
If we were looking at a contingency budget, we would be looking at a $2.3 million roughly decrease in the revenue area. So we would be looking for another 2.3 on top of the 3.8 we're looking at right now.
I think it would be helpful to have a slide on that for next time, not only on the dollar amount of a contingency budget, but on the regulatory requirements of a contingency budget. I have been lucky enough never have had to live through a contingency budget as a board member, but I know that there are some restrictions, such as we can't make our buildings available to community groups and those kinds of things. And I think that's a really important thing for community members to understand, since many, many, many people are voting on a school budget for the very first time. And we need to make clear what the impacts of that budget going down could very well be.
We can certainly do that.
That would be great. Thank you very much. Other questions about the budget, the money in, the money out? I don't see any other hands raised, so I'm just going to say one more thing. I have so much tremendous respect for children who choose and families who choose charters and who choose private and who choose whatever is right for their family, who choose homeschool. But it is just so discouraging that the increased overabundance of charter students in our community is specifically hurting our ability to provide education for the many thousands of students in the Albany Public Schools. Albany is one of the highest percentage of charter schools in the state. We're only maybe like the third or fourth highest after Buffalo. And it has a very serious and very real impact. That charter tuition, $1 million this year, but it's on the base of, I can't remember what the slide says, 35 million. That's money that we could more effectively use to educate all of the students in Albany. And it's just a very unfortunate thing that that's the way the charter funding mechanism works, because I understand why families are making choices and I respect their right to make that choice, but it really has very real impacts. And it's really, exhausting and saddening that we're having to face this still. Anybody else? Anybody on anything semi-uplifting? Because that was a real downer to end our meeting with. Okay, so we're going to move off of the budget until next week. And we're going to move on to board committee reports. Not sure if we have any committee reports this week. Does anybody have a committee report? Ms. Smith, do you have a committee report?
Actually, I do not, but I would like to point out that the next meeting of the Facilities Committee is now going to be Monday, the 18th of May at 5:30. And, you know, those details will be posted for public access.
Unless we bump you for a board meeting.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you.
Ms. Craig?
No, never mind. We actually have met since the last audit committee meeting. Just missed the meeting on my calendar.
Okay. Then do we have any other business, any questions from board members on general topics, anything for the good of the order? Ms. Wilson?
Just along the lines of being uplifting, I did see something pretty amazing that some students received scholarships or were accepted into programs, and we still found a way to celebrate that, whether they were at home or someplace else. But I saw that on the internet, and I thought that was amazing.
Thank you. I needed something uplifting. Now, I know you all want me to say the magic words. Oh, Mr. El-Minyawi, go ahead.
So the superintendent mentioned, and this is going further back, but she mentioned something about a parent commission, or like parent-student commission for reentry. Now, I know things are still being put together for that. Will the administration post something about that to parents, or send a letter about that to parents who are interested in being involved?
We have to look at how we're going to do that, but we are going to get input. But the way in which we do that, we'll have to design that. And that's part of what that reopening committee will do.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Ms. Mann, did you have a last minute question? Go ahead.
Just on the lines of something uplifting, I was walking my dog this evening, and I noticed a number of lawn signs from the Ash School, where it said an amazing Ash teacher lives here. So I didn't know I had as many teachers on my street, which is lovely. And it was really nice to see those lawn signs. And so, you know, there's really a sense, I just got the sense that we are all in this together. So that's my 2 cents.
That was an excellent, really exciting way for that principal to recognize her staff. It was really terrific. Much appreciated. Okay. Now, I know you all want me to say the magic words. Do I have a motion to adjourn? But I'm not going to say that. Instead, I'm going to say I need to entertain a motion to enter executive session for the purposes of discussing evaluation of particular personnel. Do I have a motion? Dr. Chatur, do I have a second? Ms. Wilson, all in favor? That would be unanimous. So for members of the public, we are going to enter executive session to talk about a personnel matter. We will not be returning to public session again tonight. We will exit the public session and then adjourn the meeting immediately. So while you can sit here and watch the blank screen, I don't encourage it. There are better things to do tonight. Good night, everyone who's not joining us in executive session, and we will see you next.